So you've mentioned some foods that are actually big parts of my diet, but of kind of the keto low carb field. Almonds, almond meal you've mentioned. That's everyone that makes a low carb dessert. It's pretty much made out of almond meal or coconut meal or coconut flour. You've mentioned a lot of these vegetables. What do you say to people who are on a low carb diet that it's not fixing all of their problems? How should they eat?
Well, it's pretty hard to do a low carb, low oxalate diet and stay vegetarian, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
You really got to up the animal foods.
Right.
And that's really difficult emotionally for some people. Some people get very attached to this wrong, misled idea that that's doing good for them and for the planet and for the animals.
Right.
Honestly, if you really understood a wheat combine and what it does to topsoil and air quality and animal life and how destructive that is to a natural, diverse ecosystem, you would realize that a bagel is more destructive than a steak by a long shot.
Right.
So there's a lot of misconceptions, but people feel, I've had clients that I just adore and really admire because they were able to get through that identity crisis that occurred when they realized that their problem was from a high oxalate diet and they felt better on meat and animal products. It was emotionally really trying thing. Many people hang on to this idea for decades and their specialness is their vegetarianism or their veganism, and it starts to become more of who they are than everything else about their lives as a mother or whatever. And so it's difficult for people to realize that you cannot stay where you are and still move forward. You do have to let go to move forward, and that includes bread. And, if you can't do real milk, then almond milk is not the answer, and almond bread is not the answer. And if desserts are bad for you, pureeing up almonds and calling it dessert and throwing in cocoa butter and cocoa, which is another high oxalate food, might be entertaining, but it's not necessarily safe nutrition, especially if you do it on a weekly basis. If it's just once a year for one holiday, fine, but we're in no position to mess with our health at that degree. And unfortunately, nobody realizes that this is happening. Almonds are held up as right next to spinach as the savior of all of our problems. And it's quite the opposite. I think almond flour is a disaster. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is really happening. I see the fallout from it. I see people really sick from trying to do these healthy things like almond bread and almond pudding.
Yep. So what do you advocate? Just a carnivore diet, just an all meat diet? How do you eat?
Well, I eat a carnivore diet, and I've been pure carnivore just for the month of April, but the last year and a half, I've been down to lemon juice, coconut products, and meat and milk, raw milk. But I don't advocate that.
Okay.
Not in the beginning anyway, because if you're eating almond flour and cashew cheese and spinach smoothies and whatever it is you're getting yourself in trouble with, you don't want to go straight to carnivore. That is a huge change, especially if you're also not fat adapted.
Right.
Your microbiome is used to all this other stuff and you're going to completely change. That is too much metabolic trauma and change at one time. And any kind of thing that's disrupting your homeostasis can trigger more toxicity with oxalate, because what's been happening is our thyroids are full of oxalate, our bones, our tendons, our teeth, our sinuses, all kinds of tissues have traces of oxalate that's built up over the years, and the body doesn't want it there. And it's been waiting for this moment when you get out of the raspberry patch and get back to hunting, and it would clean it out. And, historically, it wouldn't be long stretches of time where we'd eat so much high oxalate, but now you can do it all the time. So pretty much guaranteed anyone who's eating any high oxalate food has some degree of deposits in their body, and they are going to want to come out, and you don't want to traumatize the body because too much could start moving at one time. So a big dietary shift changes your metabolism from one of the body's been hanging on to oxalate to one where it's trying to get it out, and it can just sort of start puking it out in a way that makes you more toxic than you were when you're eating your almond bread. And you can get into big trouble because you have big electrolyte loss when this is happening. And a lot of us have been restricting salt and are low in potassium anyway. And with a lot of oxalate in your system, you're going to be severely depleted in minerals and B vitamins and be sick.